I walked into that executive boardroom carrying the biggest win of my career. 11 months of grinding negotiations, countless flights to Tampa dealing with Southcom's procurement officers who could smell weakness from across the room. The $850 million defense contract was finally locked down. Handshakes, congratulations, and for the first time in months, I could actually sleep through the night. The name's Nathan Morrison, by the way. Most folks call me Tank. I'm 52, been working defense contracts for 22 years now. Before that, spent 12 years in the Marines, did 2 tours in Iraq, and 1 in Afghanistan. That military background is what made this whole mess possible. So there I was, still riding the high from closing the biggest deal Ironworks Defense Corporation had seen in 7 years. Andrew Hutchinson, our COO, sat behind that mahogany desk like he was reviewing lunch menus. Without warning, he flicked his wrist and sent an envelope sliding across the surface. It landed in front of me with this hollow slap that cut through the silence. "Effective immediately," he said, voice flat as roadkill. "You're being reassigned." The words hit like incoming mortar fire. I kept my expression steady. 12 years of Marine training don't just evaporate, but my mind started running damage assessment. This wasn't protocol. You don't demote the guy who just brought in close to $1 billion. "Executive assistant," Andrew added, still avoiding eye contact. Compensation adjusted accordingly. 22 years. I'd been at Ironworks for 22 years. Started as a junior contract specialist right after my Marine discharge. Worked my way up to Senior VP of Global Defense Acquisitions. I knew every regulation, every procurement loophole, every relationship that mattered in this business. Last week's victory wasn't luck. It was the result of understanding how military procurement actually operates, something you can't pick up from business school textbooks. I grabbed that envelope with steady hands. The letter inside was surgical, efficient. My title stripped, my salary gutted, my authority transferred. But one detail made my gut clench. The date at the bottom. The letter had been signed 1 week earlier, before the Southcom deal was even finalized. This wasn't a reaction. This was planned. In the Corps, we called this a flanking maneuver. While I was focused on the mission objective, they'd repositioned to eliminate me from behind. Classic tactical error on my part. I'd assumed my allies would hold their positions. The drive home that evening felt longer than usual. I kept thinking about Sarah, my wife of 26 years, scheduled for heart surgery next month. The cardiologist said it wasn't optional anymore. Bypass surgery, $45,000 total cost. Insurance covered 80%, leaving us $9,000 up front, plus $3,000 monthly payments for 12 months. Then there's our daughter Emma, 19, and halfway through her 2nd year at West Point. The academy covers tuition, but living expenses and prep costs still run us $1,000 monthly. And Dad, Walt Morrison, Korean war vet, now in a memory care facility because his mind isn't what it used to be. $4,800 monthly for decent care, but he'd earned every dollar serving this country. My new salary as an executive assistant, $4,800 monthly. I pulled into our driveway and sat there doing the math. The house payment alone was $3,400. Add Sarah's medical payments, Emma's expenses, Dad's care facility. We were looking at $12,800 in monthly obligations on a $4,800 salary. We had about $12,000 in savings, maybe 8 to 10 weeks buffer before everything started falling apart. I'd survived firefights in Fallujah during my Marine years, but corporate warfare might be what finally took me down. Walking into the kitchen, I found the bills spread across the counter where Sarah had organized them by due date. The cardiac surgery payment plan was on top, those cold numbers representing keeping my wife alive. Below that, Emma's West Point expenses. At the bottom, the memory care facility statement for Dad. Sarah looked up from her laptop where she'd been researching heart surgeons. The stress lines around her eyes had deepened over the past few months, but she still had that strength that made me fall for her 28 years ago. "How did the recognition meeting go?" she asked. I couldn't tell her, not yet. Not when she was facing surgery in 3 weeks. Not when Emma was excelling at the academy and making us proud. Not when Dad needed care that only money could provide. "Just some reorganization stuff," I said. "Nothing major. But lying to your wife when she needs heart surgery, that's about as low as a man can sink." I knew I had to figure this out fast, before our savings ran dry and our whole world collapsed. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ryan Hutchinson, Andrew's 27-year-old son. Stanford MBA, sharp kid, but he didn't understand the military side of defense contracting. I'd spent 3 years mentoring him, teaching him how procurement really works, why relationships matter more than spreadsheets in this business, how to read between the lines when dealing with military brass. Andrew wanted his son fast-tracked, needed my position open. Ryan was costing them $180,000, but nowhere near producing my level results. The math was simple corporate nepotism. Sacrifice the veteran to advance the legacy. The next morning would bring answers I wasn't prepared for. But lying there in the dark, listening to Sarah's steady breathing beside me, I started wondering if maybe I'd taught Ryan a little too well. Walking through the executive floor felt like entering hostile territory. First thing I noticed was the blank space on my office door where my nameplate used to be. Just this clean rectangle where Nathan Morrison, Senior VP Global Defense Acquisitions, had been for the past 6 years. Inside my old office, they'd already cleared out my personal files. My access badge wouldn't open the storage cabinets I'd organized over the years. Even my company email was dead. When I tried logging in, the system just said, "Account not recognized." Like 22 years of work had been erased with a mouse click. I was moving my stuff into a cubicle on the second floor when I heard voices from the main conference room. Through the glass wall, I could see a presentation in progress. The slide deck looked familiar, real familiar. It was my work, the strategy I developed for the Southcom contract. But something was wrong. Where it used to say, Lead Negotiator Nathan Morrison, it now read, Director of Strategic Partnerships Ryan Hutchinson. My photo had been cropped out completely, replaced by Ryan's headshot. The kid was up there presenting my strategy like he'd developed it himself. Ryan Hutchinson. I'd taken him under my wing 3 years ago when he showed up fresh from Stanford with his MBA and zero understanding of how military procurement actually works. Smart enough kid, but book learning only gets you so far in defense contracts. I'd spent countless hours teaching him the details, why certain clauses matter, how to read military brass, what procurement officers really want to hear. I remember when he shadowed me during the initial Southcom meetings, taking notes like his life depended on it. I'd explained how one misplaced comma in a military contract could cost millions, how relationships with procurement officers take years to build, why the military trusts people who've actually served overseas. Watching him present my work to the board, something clicked right then. This wasn't just corporate politics. This was personal. As the meeting ended, Ryan caught my eye through the glass. He walked over with this smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'll do my best," he said, pausing just long enough for the words to sink in. "To build on your foundation work, Tank." Foundation work. 22 years of expertise reduced to foundation work. "You taught me well," he added, then walked away with that confident stride of someone who thinks they've earned something they stole. That afternoon I was cleaning out my desk when a folder slipped from the stack. A memo was wedged inside, printed so faintly it looked like it was never meant to be seen. At first glance, it seemed like routine correspondence, but one line stopped me cold. Strategic objective, transition NM out by Q2. The letters were clear, deliberate, and dated 5 months earlier. 5 months. This wasn't some sudden decision after a bad quarter or a personality conflict. They'd been planning to eliminate me since before I even started the final push on Southcom negotiations. I'd been set up from the beginning. In the Marines, we learned to analyze intelligence failures. This was textbook. I'd been so focused on external threats, on beating the competition for that contract, that I'd missed the inside job. While I was building relationships with Southcom procurement officers, Andrew and Ryan were building a case against me. That evening hit me hard. I sat at the kitchen table with those bills spread out in front of me again, doing the math over and over, hoping somehow the numbers would change. Sarah's heart surgery payments, $3,000 monthly. Emma's West Point expenses, $1,000 monthly. Dad's memory care facility, $4,800 monthly. Our mortgage, $3,400 monthly. Sarah's upfront surgical costs, $600 monthly to cover the $9,000 we'd need. Total monthly obligations, $12,800. My new executive assistant salary, $4,800 monthly. The gap was $8,000 monthly. With our $12,000 in savings, we had maybe 8 weeks before everything started falling apart. This was financial devastation, pure and simple. I'd survived combat zones in Fallujah, watched good Marines die, made life-or-death decisions under fire. But sitting at that kitchen table, I felt more helpless than I ever had in a firefight. At least in combat, you can shoot back. My phone buzzed around 9:30 that evening. The caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't answer. Too many scam calls these days, but something made me pick up. Mr. Morrison, this is Daniel Brooks. I'm a contract attorney specializing in defense agreements. I've been reviewing the Ironworks Southcom deal. My pulse quickened. What about it? Did you draft Clause 84C in the original contract? I had to think for a second. So many clauses, so many negotiations. Then it came back to me. Yes, I did. Why? Then you need to hear this. That clause is ironclad, Mr. Morrison. Unambiguous. If Southcom's designated military liaison is reassigned, they have every right to void the contract and demand full repayment with double damages for breach of designated person requirements. That got my attention fast. I grabbed a pen and started taking notes. It's not just enforceable, Daniel continued. It's bulletproof. No court in any jurisdiction could dispute its validity. Southcom contracts include enhanced penalties for liaison breaches due to national security implications. Industry standard 2x multiplier when designated person requirements are violated. Does Ironworks know this? They should have flagged it during legal review. But here's the thing. Southcom specifically requested you for this contract. They wanted someone with actual military experience and security clearance, not just business credentials. They reached out to me the moment they learned you'd been reassigned. Something clicked right then. After weeks of feeling erased, invisible, forgotten, suddenly I was necessary again. They want to meet with you directly, Daniel said. They're questioning Ironworks' integrity. DoD regulations require veteran-led oversight on contracts this size. Without your clearance and background, they're already having second thoughts about the whole arrangement. When the call ended, I sat there staring at my notes. For the first time since Andrew Hutchinson slid that envelope across the table, I didn't feel powerless. That clause wasn't just legal protection, it was leverage, and leverage was power. That night, I dug out my old leather portfolio from my Marine days. I'd carried that thing through every deployment, every contract negotiation for the past 22 years. The worn cover was scarred with travel, pages stuffed with boarding passes and hotel receipts. I was looking for something specific, my notes from the Miami negotiations 8 months back. There it was in my own handwriting. Clause 84C. Any reassignment of the designated military liaison shall grant the client full right to void the contract and demand restitution of $850 million plus double damages totaling $1.7 billion for breach of designated person requirements. I remembered writing it now. The Southcom procurement officer had pulled me aside during a break. We've been burned before, he'd said. We need your name on this, Morrison, not just the company's. Too many contractors switch people midstream after they get the signature. This clause protects both of us. So I'd written that clause as insurance. Standard practice in military procurement, actually. When you're buying billion-dollar weapons systems, you want continuity. You want the guy who negotiated the deal to be the guy who oversees delivery. 22 years of intel, relationships, and protocol knowledge. They thought they could replace that with a business school graduate who'd never spent a day understanding how Southcom procurement actually works. Classic mistake. Underestimating enemy capabilities. The next morning, I composed the most important email of my career. Had to be clinical, factual, completely professional. No emotion, no accusations, just the truth delivered like a precision strike. For your awareness, Ironworks has reassigned operational authority away from me as of Friday. Please see Clause 84C of the executed agreement regarding your rights if designated oversight is altered. I remain available to answer questions about procurement protocols and DoD compliance requirements. That was it. Short, clean, and devastating. My finger hovered over the send button. In that single click, I could unravel everything. Ironworks' biggest contract, Andrew's quarterly projections, Ryan's stolen promotion, the weight of $1.7 billion pressed on my shoulders. I thought about Andrew's dismissive eyes when he slid that envelope across the table. I thought about Ryan presenting my strategy like it was his own work. Their arrogance had convinced them I was powerless. What they didn't realize was that power sometimes hides in silence, waiting for the exact moment to speak. I clicked send. The response was faster than I'd expected. 8 minutes later, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Southcom's procurement system had flagged the contract for immediate review. All transactions frozen pending investigation. Within the hour, I could hear the chaos building upstairs, voices rising from the executive floor, rapid footsteps in the hallways. Someone was asking why procurement was showing red flags. Another voice wanted to know who had suspended the Southcom orders. I stayed at my cubicle, acting like nothing had happened. Just another executive assistant doing paperwork. By lunch, the storm had reached full intensity. Through the glass walls of the main conference room, I could see Andrew Hutchinson's fist slamming the table so hard the windows rattled. How the hell did Clause 84C make it into the contract? His voice carried down the hall. All that earlier composure was gone. The man who'd measured my worth in spreadsheet numbers was now sweating through his tailored suit. Ryan was trying to hold his ground, but I could see the panic in his eyes. "This isn't my fault," he kept saying. "Morrison wrote that clause. Why should I be punished for his oversight?" His oversight. 22 years of experience building safeguards into contracts was an oversight. Then came the notification that changed everything. Phones buzzed in unison as Southcom's legal department delivered their ultimatum. Andrew read it aloud, his voice stripped of all authority. Effective immediately, Ironworks must restore Nathan Morrison to his designated role as military liaison, or Southcom will exercise its right to void the contract and demand repayment of $850 million, plus double damages totaling $1.7 billion for breach of designated person requirements under DoD Regulation 48 CFR 252. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the air conditioning humming, papers rustling, but nobody spoke. A board member actually gasped. Another dropped his pen. Ryan's expression crumbled. All that earlier confidence dissolved into pure panic, the same look I'd seen on young Marines' faces during their first firefight. Andrew rubbed his temples, the fight going out of him. For years, he'd been the man in control, the one who decided careers with a signature. Now the numbers were strangling him. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. But the area code was familiar. Southern California, where half the defense contractors in America had their West Coast headquarters. "Mr. Morrison, this is Colonel Richards from Fortress Strategic Solutions." Fortress, Ironworks' biggest competitor. The company Andrew had always dismissed as second-tier competition. "We've been following the situation with Southcom," he continued. "We'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Chief Military Liaison position, Defense Contracts Division. Compensation would be $280,000 base plus equity stake worth $650,000. Signing bonus of $125,000. Full authority to build your own team." I leaned back in my cubicle chair, watching the chaos unfold upstairs through the glass. For months, I'd been treated like a ghost. Now the company Ironworks feared most was offering me not just restoration, but elevation. "We believe in recognizing talent, Mr. Morrison, and we understand that military procurement requires people who've actually served, someone who understands security clearance requirements and veteran oversight protocols." When was the last time anyone at Ironworks had said that? "I'd be interested in hearing more," I said. But even as I scheduled the meeting, another email was coming in. This one made my pulse quicken. The sender was Southcom itself. "Mr. Morrison, we have made our position clear to Ironworks leadership. However, let us also be clear with you. We will not proceed with this agreement under any circumstances unless your name is attached as the designated liaison. DoD regulations require veteran-led oversight on defense contracts exceeding $500 million. This is non-negotiable. Your security clearance, combat experience, and 22-year track record in military procurement make you irreplaceable for this contract. Any attempt to substitute non-veteran personnel violates federal procurement guidelines." I read it twice, then a third time. To Southcom, I wasn't just an employee caught in corporate politics. I wasn't replaceable. I was the contract itself. For the first time since this whole thing started, I had a choice, a real one. I wasn't powerless anymore. I was a strategic asset, the kind of person both rivals and clients were willing to fight for. And the decision of where I'd stand next belonged to me alone. The meeting with Fortress Strategic Solutions was scheduled for the next morning. I drove to their headquarters in San Diego, about 45 minutes from Ironworks, but it felt like entering a different world. Where Ironworks was all glass and chrome trying to look impressive, Fortress's lobby had photos of actual military hardware they'd built. Ships, aircraft, weapon systems, real equipment that kept our people safe. Colonel Richards turned out to be exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd spent 32 years in the Army before going private sector. Straight shooter, no corporate nonsense, spoke facts instead of buzzwords. "We've been watching Ironworks fumble this for months," he said. Southcom specifically requested someone with military background for this contract, yet they stick you with a business school kid who doesn't know a destroyer from a dinghy. He slid a contract across the table. Not an envelope this time. A proper folder with terms spelled out clearly. "Chief Military Liaison," he said. "Base salary $280,000 plus equity stake worth $650,000 current valuation. Signing bonus of $125,000. And here's the important part. You build your own team. Hire who you want. Fire who you want. Your operation to run." I scanned the numbers. Nearly 60 times my current executive assistant salary. Premium health insurance that would cover Sarah's surgery without question. More than enough to keep Emma's West Point expenses on track and upgrade Dad to the best memory care facility in the area. But it wasn't just about the money. For the first time in months, someone was talking to me like I mattered. Like 22 years of experience actually counted for something. "There's one condition," Colonel Richards added. "Southcom has made it clear they'll only work with you. The contract moves with you or it doesn't move at all. Federal procurement guidelines back them up on this. Veteran oversight is mandatory for defense contracts this size." That same afternoon, I signed with Fortress. The paperwork took 90 minutes, but walking out of there, I felt lighter than I had in months. The same $850 million defense contract, but now my name was permanently attached to it. The headlines started hitting the news wires within hours. Fortress Strategic Solutions secures historic $850 million defense contract. Ironworks faces $1.7 billion repayment after losing key executive to compliance violation. Every major business outlet ran the story. Bloomberg, Reuters, Financial Times. And with each headline, my name appeared not as a victim, but as the architect of Fortress's victory. I watched the fallout unfold in real time. Ironworks stock plummeted 18% in after-hours trading. Investors were demanding answers about DoD compliance failures. The board called an emergency meeting. Andrew Hutchinson's resignation came through on Friday afternoon. No big announcement, no farewell tour, just a terse company memo about pursuing other opportunities. The same man who dismissed me with an envelope was now slinking away under cover of corporate speak. Ryan Hutchinson's downfall was even faster. By Monday morning, his name had been scrubbed from the company website. His LinkedIn profile went dark. All those presentations where he'd claimed credit for my work, deleted like they never existed. The same digital eraser they'd used on me had consumed him. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just got to work. My first day at Fortress, I called an all-hands meeting for the Defense Contracts Division. About 35 people showed up. Mix of former military and civilian contractors, most of them with more gray hair than not. People who understood that experience matters in this business. "We're building something different here," I told them. "A place where 22 years of service actually means something. Where your word is your bond. Where loyalty goes both ways." I looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. In the Marines, we had a code. Never leave a man behind. That's how we're going to operate here. Nobody gets thrown away because it's convenient for some spreadsheet. The nods around the room told me the message had landed. These weren't kids fresh from business school looking to climb corporate ladders. These were professionals who'd been burned by companies that treated people like disposable assets. Within 3 weeks, I'd hired away 4 of Ironworks' best people. Folks who'd been quietly looking for exits after seeing how they treated me. Word gets around in this industry. People talk. And suddenly, everyone knew that Fortress was where you went if you wanted to be valued for what you brought to the table. Southcom's procurement team made a point of visiting our offices the following month. The lead officer, Commander Peterson, was the same guy who'd insisted on my involvement from the beginning. "This is how it should work," he said, reviewing our project timeline. "Military professionals working with people who understand DoD requirements, not some corporate climber trying to figure out the difference between a frigate and a submarine." 4 months later, we'd signed 3 additional contracts with Southcom worth another $520 million combined. Fortress stock price had tripled. My equity stake was suddenly worth over $1.9 million. But the real satisfaction came from building something that mattered. When Emma called to tell me she'd made the dean's list at West Point, I could focus on being proud instead of worrying about expenses. When Sarah's heart surgery went perfectly and the surgeon said she'd be better than new, we could afford the celebration dinner we'd been talking about for years. The $9,000 upfront cost didn't even register as a concern anymore. Dad's new memory care facility has a whole wing for veterans, better food, better activities, staff who understand what guys like him went through overseas. He's sharper now, more engaged. Sometimes we sit on the porch and he tells stories about Korea that I'd never heard before. "You did good, son," he said during one of my visits. Sometimes a man has to walk away from something broken to build something that works. Looking back, I realized Andrew Hutchinson and Ryan Hutchinson did me a favor. They forced me out of a company that had stopped valuing loyalty, experience, and integrity. They pushed me toward people who understood that character matters more than quarterly earnings. The defense industry is full of companies that chase profits and forget about the people actually building the equipment that keeps our soldiers safe. But there are still places like Fortress where values mean something, where a handshake is still a commitment, where 22 years of service opens doors instead of making you a target. Last week, I got a LinkedIn message from Ryan. He's working for some consulting firm now, probably making half what he thought he'd be earning. The message was short. "Congrats on the Fortress success. Hope we can work together again someday." I deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. These days I drive to work knowing that what I do matters. The contracts I negotiate keep our soldiers safe. The relationships I build help ensure our military gets the equipment they need. And the team I've assembled understands that mission comes first, always. Turns out old Marine habits really did save my civilian career. In the Corps, we learned that honor isn't just a word. It's how you conduct yourself when nobody's watching. Corporate America could learn something from that philosophy.